Hello, everyone. Welcome to Health, Healing, and Religion, RLCT 2116. My name is Professor McCann, and I'll be teaching you in this spring session. Obviously, the course is very compressed in the spring, so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me immediately via email, or I can set up a phone call, or we can meet in Blackboard Collaborate. Okay, so I just wanted to start with the overarching theme of the course, which is the intersection between health, healing, and religion. And this is by no means obvious to most people. I would say the opposite. So the majority of my students over the years have walked into the course seeing no correlation whatsoever. I think very quickly you're going to begin to see why there is a direct connection. So just to give you an example, the photograph I'm offering here is, you probably would think, oh, that's a medical doctor, biomedical doctor. In fact, this is a photograph of a traditional Chinese healer working with the pulses as they understand it. So within that Chinese healing tradition, we see Taoism, the religion of Taoism, plays a very, very important role. And we'll be getting to that in due course. So I'm going to start out by looking at larger themes, such as what is health? We need to get a good handle on how we even understand that term. We also are going to look at modern versus traditional or religious approaches to the physical body, scientific versus religious worldviews, and we'll then engage with indigenous, Chinese, Christian, East Asian, and New Age approaches to healing. This is just a small set of examples. Obviously, there's a lot of information out there. The course will conclude with a discussion of the possibility of a dialogue between various healing modalities and our current medical system. So it's my hope that you'll come out of the course having thought much more deeply, not only about health, healing, and religion, but about how it impacts on your personal health. And I hope that you will see those connections. I do want to go over a little bit of housekeeping in terms of the syllabus before we get started. And just to give you some background, this image is an image of the healing Buddha from the Vajrayana Tibetan tradition. So I'm just going to use some of these as backgrounds as I'm talking to get you slowly introduced into the topic. So the required text for the course is a cross-cultural dialogue on healthcare ethics. All this information is available on Blackboard under course information. It'll be there for the whole course. So this book is edited by Harold Coward and Pinit Ratanakul. So you can order it in book form, or you can access it online through the Nipissing Library. So you just look for the title and it'll bring you up an online copy. The other required text is the course pack. I very strongly recommend you get a hard copy of this. I know when I'm working on topics, it's just better if you can underline it, write notes in the margins, and so on. It's just much easier than doing it virtually, but I have placed links to virtual versions of it in Blackboard. Okay. So in terms of methods of evaluation, you're going to be doing 2 reflection papers worth 15% each. And the first reflection, as listed here, will be where you talk about imagining a metaphor for your body. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. The second reflection will be on the topic of what is health. And by that point, you'll have been doing enough reading and thinking that you'll be able to write a reflection paper. The third assignment is the final essay, which is on a topic you can choose from a list that I'm giving you, or you can come up with your own topic. I very much encourage you to do that. I'd much prefer that you're working on something that you find personally interesting and meaningful. And if you're having trouble coming up with a topic, you can talk with me about it. But if not, you can just pick one from the list. It's up to you. The final essay is worth 30%. Then there'll be a take-home final exam that you have a week to complete. And the rest of the mark comes from participation, which is 10%. And that is taken from your 5 comments that you make on the discussion boards in Blackboard. So you'll get full marks as long as you make 5 substantive comments. So no yes or no or I agree, but some kind of substantive comment will, if you write 5 of them, you'll get 100% of participation. So again, as a backdrop here, I'm offering an image from the Christian tradition. This is Jesus as healer, and so we will be talking about this in much more detail when we get to that section, but a large part of the New Testament is taken up with the healing, miracles, and works of Jesus and his disciples. So here's yet another very clear connection. So, okay, to get back to a little bit of housekeeping, I did want to say that for all your assignments, such as the essay and the second reflection, you do need to use peer-reviewed sources. And if you have any doubt about what that means, you can communicate with me. The easiest way to make sure you're using peer-reviewed sources is to go through the search engines of the library, because all of those journals are peer-reviewed, and so you just don't even have to worry. So as I've said many, many times, Wikipedia is not a peer-reviewed source. Okay, that will not be counted. So as part of your mark, I count through your sources, and the rule of thumb is 1 per page. So if it's a 6-page essay, you should have at least 6 peer-reviewed sources. In our LCT, we use the MLA style guide. Now, I know some of you many times come from nursing. If you want to use APA, that's also fine. But you can't just make up your own mode of citation. So when you're citing sources, you need to use either MLA or APA, and you need to cite in the text. So if you don't cite your references, I will be sending it back to you. So make sure that you cite your references so that if I need to, I can look up your sources and I have the page, date, and author. Okay. Now I'm going to go over the course schedule. So week 1 will be introduction to the course. Also discussing the topic of what is health and paradigms of healing. Week 2 will be shamanism and indigenous traditions, and shamanism, in my opinion, is the root of all of these connections. It's the oldest form we know of in human history, and as David Kinsley has argued, all healers partake of aspects of shamanism, and I'll be discussing that as we move through. Week 3 is the religious roots of Western medicine, and Western biomedicine has really tried to distance itself from its religious roots. So I want to bring this history to you. So then we'll be moving on to looking at views of the body and the connection between health and healing in Judaism and Christianity. In week 4, we move to looking at Eastern systems of healing, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Chinese traditions. Week 5 will be healing in the New Age, so that will include approaches that we see. Some of you may be familiar with these. You may have gone to these practitioners, such as Reiki and energy healing, etc. And the last week will be looking at imagining a new healthcare system, and if there is a way that we can bring wisdom from these traditions into our mainstream healthcare system, and also what are the challenges to doing that, and what are the benefits. So again, in the background here, I've offered you an image from the indigenous tradition, and this is a medicine wheel. Some of you are probably very familiar with this. We'll be looking at this in more detail when we get to that section, but you can see already that this medicine wheel indicates a very different approach to health, healing, and well-being that goes far beyond just the physical body. When I teach this class on campus and in person, I like to start out with this exercise, and so I'm going to continue it even though we're online. So I'm going to ask all of you to think about a metaphor for your own body. And I always say don't overthink it. There's no right or wrong answer. There's only a true answer, which is how you honestly imagine your own body. I've had a wide variety of answers on this, and I always find it absolutely fascinating. And this can become a way for you to reflect about how you think and feel about your own body. And of course, that has direct implications for how you think about your health. So for instance, I had a student years ago who was a varsity athlete, and he was very honest, and he said, you know, I think of my body as a machine, and I drive it into the ground, and then I get it fixed, and I get it back on the road. So that was his metaphor for his body. Now, I, of course, invited him to think about whether or not that was a healthy way of viewing it, but nonetheless, you can only start with what your honest feeling about it is. So I'm asking you to think about and write down in a journal or some other safe place what is the metaphor you have for your body. And this is also going to be the first question on the discussion board. So it's really valuable for you to share honestly with your peers, and we can start discussing this and the implications of what metaphors we hold. So let's begin by looking at a definition of health. Health is one of those words where we think we know what it means, much like the word religion. I always have my students think about what these words actually mean to them. Again, you feel free to write it down, your ideas about it, and that's an upcoming question, your own definition of health. But I want to get us started by looking at the World Health Organization and their definition. So I've offered it here. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So let's just start with that. So right out of the gate, we can see that the WHO is stating very clearly that health is not just about the physical body, which is, I would say, the common sense understanding of it generally, that health is just when I'm not sick. So the World Health Organization is basically saying health is a much larger concept, which includes the physical, the mental, and the social. And if we start unpacking that, and we will be as we move through the course, for instance, the ways in which our mental status affects our physical body and vice versa, and also the way society impacts on health and well-being. And so that's another key question of the course. Am I solely responsible for my own health? I think we can say definitively, not when just right now in the pandemic, I've just made my appointment for vaccination. Clearly, I can't be just individually responsible for my health. And so that is a misnomer. I think that we live in a highly atomized, individualized society. But once we look at it, it becomes very clear that our health is not just individual. So we know, for instance, certain people, if they don't have access to resources or to proper food or are living in environmentally degraded areas, are not going to be as healthy as people that have access to those things. So health is a very complex phenomenon. So in the second part, it says the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being, without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic, or social condition. So this is, of course, a very idealistic view of health. I share it, but unfortunately, it is not the case a lot of the time. Even within our own country, as I've just said, well-being is often tied to how much money you make. And if we look at what's going on in India right now with the pandemic, clearly lack of access to resources has cataclysmic impacts on the health of people. So the WHO is saying that health is an inalienable right, but it is certainly one that many, many people are still struggling to attain. So I just wanted to bring this definition forward as a way to get us started, and we can start parsing out specific aspects of it as we move through the course. So I'm going to end the intro there, and I just wanted to say I will be posting every week as we move through the course. And so again, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me on my email, and we can also set up a virtual meeting.